Mike Tyson. You listen to the XY show, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's going to be ecstatic.
The opinions expressed on the X and Y show are the sole opinions of the host. Please note, there is no intentional desire to offend any member of the listening audience. With that said, if you still feel offended, tough shit.
It's time for the X and Y show with your host, Mr. Roosevelt. He talks about man topics, lady topics, and relationships. He talks about love, sex, and infidelities. He even gives good tips. There is no other show that compares to the X and Y show.
Oh yeah. Sit back, take your clothes off, and relax. It's time for the X and Y show, where real relationship issues are talked about and addressed. The only place on the planet that tackles the topics that everyone wants to talk about, but no one is brave enough to address. Nothing escapes X and Y, baby. Now, here's your host, Roosevelt Colbert.
And greetings. Welcome to another segment of the X and Y show. And I'm your host, Roosevelt. As promised, last week I told you I'd be talking to a special person. She's the owner of one of the most prestigious brothels in the state of Nevada. Her name is Bella, Madam Bella, whatever you want to call her. She owns the Bella's Hacienda that is located in Nevada. Their address is 623 8th Street, Wells, Nevada, 89835. They're on Twitter at Bella's, Bellas, Hacienda, Hacienda, at Bella's Hacienda. And their website is bellas.us. So please check them out if you're in Nevada. Very nice lady. Had a interesting conversation with her on the subject of brothels and how do they fit in society and how people accept them, the whole gambit. And for those who are kind of stupid, brothels are basically where men and women can go and get, sexual help. And that doesn't mean you just fucking. Sometimes they pay for people just to lay with them, hug them, give them a massage, or just talk, So it's just not a fucking house, even though if I was going, that's what it was going. It's going to be some fucking if I'm going to be there. But it's not just for that. That's where everybody see a brothel. It's just a bunch of prostitutes and whores and all this kind of shit that society has labeled these young ladies. And it's unfortunate, it's because in a way they're providing a service, when it's just like anything else. When you need a beer, you need a drink, you go to a bar, right? You buy a bar from the bartender and they serve you. So a lot of times people just need attention, whether it's, they need some pussy or they just need somebody to hold them or someone to talk to them. And it's a place to go to get that. It's just not a whorehouse. And I think that society, unfortunately, looks down on those type of places, even though everyone, there's a lot of people who, usually the main people, the ones who are so against them, they are the ones who have visited them quite often in a prior life, if you know what I mean. Always a bunch of hypocritical motherfuckers that do one thing or say one thing and do another. So, and I'm not saying that, brothels are the best thing that ever hit the planet. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying everything has a need. And if you think of all the crazy motherfuckers out there that are walking around shooting up schools and shooting up post offices and all kind of crazy shit. I really believe if just not every state, because Nevada, I believe Nevada's the only state, I'm not sure, but Nevada's the only state that has legalized, prostitution or brothel houses, whatever you want to say. You think about it, if you can get brothel service in every state, from all 50 states, and I'm talking about legal, not, I ain't talking about illegal or the massage parlors and shit that you motherfuckers go to right now. I'm talking about legal brothel houses where they're regulated, they're clean and checked on and, taxed like every other business. If you had that in every state, would there be so many shootings, or just people walking around with fucked up attitudes in general? If they were just getting some regular ass, right? Or someone to listen to them talk, or someone to hold them and kiss them and say it's going to be okay. I really believe if people were getting enough affection, I think society wouldn't be so fucked up. That's why in Europe, I know we can't prove this, but in Europe, they're a little bit more open to this. You can get pussy, pretty easy over there, Amsterdam and all that other shit. And those motherfuckers are a lot more calm than we are. I'm not saying that it's a utopia in Europe. I am saying that they are a lot more calm than we are in the United States. That's all I'm saying. And I think that roots back to pussy or affection. And that's what these brothels provide. So anyway, my conversation was with Madam Bella. I hope you enjoy it. Try to take a perspective from it, and the way you think about brothels right now, maybe it'll change your mind afterwards. Maybe it won't. I don't give a fuck. But I just want you to think differently and don't just label something without knowing what the fuck you're talking about. Without further ado, enjoy the episode. I will see you next week. Later. Hello, my X and Y listeners out there in X and Y land. This is Roosevelt. As promised, during the new year, I told you I would give you a new perspective on different types of shows. And this one is very different. We're talking about brothels tonight. And for you ignorant motherfuckers, there's places where people can go and receive services from the opposite sex. Now, it's not the regular house that's just for sex. There's other things that you can do within that business. So, and I want to clear up some of the stigma that is going around about this particular business and not being called prostitutes, being called sex workers or female workers. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to clear up a lot of ignorance that people have when we're talking about that particular type of business. Now, tonight I'm talking to Miss Bella Cummins. She is the owner of the Bella's Hacienda Ranch in Nevada. She's been doing it for 37 years. So for those of you who watched the HBO special about the Bunny Ranch, I think that most of that is a lot of bullshit. So she's going to clear up a lot of that tonight for us. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Miss Bella Cummins. How you doing, Bella?
Oh, good evening, Roosevelt. Thanks for having me.
And we're glad to have you. So now I'm very excited about this interview and that we have a chance to chat a little bit and for you to clear up some, I want to say we're really ignorant about that type of business, including myself. I'm not excluded from that because I thought that the way the HBO special portrayed the Bunny Ranch, I thought that that's what was actually going on in that particular type of business. A lot of guys coming in spending 10 grand, 15 grand, and just a lot of money floating around. So, in your opinion, how realistic was that HBO special? Was it actual truth in that? And did it hurt the image of brothels, or was it beneficiary to them?
Roosevelt, as we know, there are wealthy clients that can visit any brothel. And in the actual show, where it never talks about other denominations of money, lesser denominations being spent, is misleading to someone that is, let's say, just starting out in life, or they have other obligations that they spend their money on. And as far as, what I call sensual sexual services, they may be in a range that's much smaller than that. And by that I mean, it could be in the hundreds, or it could be, in the smaller thousands. But it's such a wonderful experience for a guest that to have exactly what they're looking for means that they should come in prepared to spend a little more, but without it being out of their budget.
So it's not like you have to take from your children's college fund.
You don't have to take from your children's college fund to have an experience. But obviously, when you spend more, it's an expanded experience. And there are people that come in and they're looking for what I call standard sexual services, or they want actually a massage. And those guests are probably going to spend, a dollar amount that's more to everyone's budget.
Okay, so it's like more or less affordable. It's not necessarily, you don't have to be Donald Trump's son to go in there. It's very affordable to the average person.
That's a really good way to say it. It's as affordable as, I'm going to say, the courtesan, which is the same as like a sex worker, but she's going to do her best to work with your budget. But a person wouldn't want to go in and want, an around the world experience and think that that's only going to be a small dollar amount. It's going to be more, but it's still going to be something that's negotiated and acceptable to both courtesan and guest.
I see. So it's basically like going in and buying a car. You negotiate a price, and if it's, that's too high, then maybe, okay, well, instead of, a V8, I'll give you a V6, So, the Brothel, okay, that's too high. Well, maybe I can't give you the A service, but maybe we can do the B service. And so it's just finding out what.
Well,
Go ahead.
We would call it a sampler. All right, so you aren't going to be able to do the entire girlfriend experience, but you can budget a sampler.
Oh.
So and it's a great experience. These ladies do their very best to leave the client with more than he ever thought the party or experience would be about.
Oh, okay. That's getting your money's worth, basically. You're definitely going to get your money's worth.
Well, absolutely. That's why we have such a great reputation.
Okay, now I'm not going to tell your age, but I know your age, but you kind of cute. Did you ever work in the business personally, or were you always just a proprietor?
I never worked in the legal industry. All right. I wasn't in the state to even know. I lived in other parts of the country. However, when I came into the knowing of the existence of brothels, then I was actually in a different profession at that time. I owned a restaurant, but it was in an area that had a lot of of brothels, and it didn't teach me anything, but I met, whether it was madams or owners or whoever, and just ordinary people running a business that deals with sexual services.
Okay. So, what type of licensing, like for example, let's say if I move to Nevada, what would I have to do to start a brothel? I mean, is there a lot of because I know in Florida, if you want to open a bar, that's damn near impossible, getting a liquor license. How is the bureaucracy of starting a brothel, even though it's legal, but how's the red tape of starting one?
Well, let me explain a little bit about it. In 1970, the legislature voted for legal, I'm going to call it prostitution, in counties that had less than population of 400,000. All right. So what that meant was rural counties could put, they could have the people vote about whether they wanted brothels in their county. All right. Well, I happen to reside in Elko County, and the Elko County people voted in the existence of brothels.
Oh.
Okay. So the brothels that are in existence across Nevada are licensed, and there's a certain number of them. A person couldn't come into Nevada and say, I want to start a brothel. They would have to buy an existing license. Let's say my license. Come in and say, Bella, I'd like Bella's Hacienda Ranch. How much do you want? And that's how it works. So there's probably about 19 or 20 that are in operation. All right. And there used to be about 32, but there were some counties that actually decided to abolish them. And they were in areas that were, let's say, close to Navy bases. And the Navy decided they didn't want them that close. So there were things that happened that put a few of them out of existence. But like Bella's in the northeast corner, the community that we're in, they want us there. They don't put their hand up and say, by golly, we're happy you're here. But they don't need to be asked. They just know the revenue we bring in, the money we spend. So you have taxation, where we're really helping a smaller community, and we have public safety. We have no sex crimes.
So it's almost, I don't want to make a bad analogy, but it's kind of like legalizing drugs. And when I say that, because when they legalized marijuana, they took away a lot of the crime, or I'm not going to say drugs. Let's say alcohol. When they ended prohibition,
Okay.
when they ended prohibition, when all of that stuff was going on back in the day, and when the crime bosses got so powerful because they were selling liquor. But now when they ended the prohibition and made alcohol legal, it took away a large chunk of the crime that was going on back then over beer. So essentially, since your county voted to have legalized prostitution or legalized sex work, and it took away a lot of the dirtiness of the business because it's able to be regulated. Correct? Would that be a correct assumption?
Well, that's a great way to look at it, because prohibition merely puts things underground. All right. So let's say where Bella's Hacienda Ranch is, in that location really was a brothel in the 30s, and it was a brothel in the 50s and 60s. But when, around 1970, then this particular business, at the time was called Hacienda, could actually be legal. Otherwise, it was just across the track, and let's call it tolerated. It wasn't in the main part of town. People said it's over there, and that was the separation required to, I'm going to say, be available for miners or people working on the railroad, or that was a whole different time in history. But to actually be licensed legally, and then of course the regulations were created by not so much the state as the city or county, because they were the ones that were governing and I'm going to say allowing that license to be paid for.
I see. Okay. So they made it okay to actually.
They made it illegal. They made it a legal
business entity, right? Okay, and so that way, basically, before it was tolerated, but the legal system didn't bother you, but in that way, it ensured that they wouldn't bother you.
I'm going to say yes. There's a lot of religious beliefs that really are out of alignment with our being on the planet as a human being.
Right.
All right. And I'm a firm believer that we are really here to be sexual beings. The issue has been that people think there's a certain way to do it, or, if you will, you're going to go to hell. That you have to be married, or you have to follow man's laws. And I believe that the idea of being able to buy services means that people aren't manipulating one another for sex. They're absolutely upfront about what they want. The other person says, hey, great, that's perfect. I like doing that. This is how much it's going to cost. And it isn't a cold negotiation. It's a seductive, sensual negotiation where two people can decide what they'd like to experience together.
Right. Mutually. A mutual agreement. That's what it is.
It is. And truly, I don't think people that are consensual adults should be made criminals for exchanging services and money. All right. It gets very criminal when it's against someone's will or it involves underage people. Then it's a problem.
Like sex trafficking and that kind of thing. Hello?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I got to look clear. Like
Okay.
you're referring to sex trafficking, correct?
Absolutely. And in a legal brothel, the ladies are there by choice. And there's a criteria like medical clearances and fingerprinting and a Nevada state business license that says they are a sole proprietor of their own business as a courtesan. And then there's a work card given that says that this person, after fingerprinting, can do business at Bella's Hacienda Ranch. So it would be virtually impossible for someone to be trafficked in a legal brothel because we all go through the same requirements.
Okay, like a very rigorous vetting process.
Yeah, and it's a short career. The women that choose this, they're going to go on in time to something else. Maybe they're going to college right now, or anything like that, or they want to go to college, or in some other kind of trade school, and they have a real appetite for sensual sexual services, and with condoms mandatory, it's something that it's possible because it turns into these fantasy experiences. And there are so many people out there nowadays that don't have time for a relationship, or maybe they aren't interested in one right now, that they're working on their career, or maybe it's someone that's handicapped. And so finding someone to engage in services such as sex is very difficult to find. So there's a lot of good things about regulated, legal, I'm going to call it sensual sexual services.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. Now, in talking about brothels, a lot of people believe that brothels just a place you buy pussy, right? Or have some type of sexual act, whatever it is that, get you off. But, my definition of a brothel is, it's a place you buy pussy, but it's also a place that you buy fantasies. Because for that time that you buy, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, you have your ultimate fantasy that you would like to have with a woman. So that's my definition. It's a place to buy pussy and to achieve your ultimate fantasy. Maybe it's with your fantasy is to have a menage a trois, with 2 women.
It could be.
Could be. Or like me, 10 women. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But, whatever your fantasy is. So that's what it is. A brothel is to me a place you buy pussy and buy a fantasy. Would that be an accurate definition? Like, what is your definition of a brothel?
Well, remember, I talk about sensual and sexual.
Right.
And I say that because, since we were all locked down for a while, except for in Florida, and people were kept apart, and it changed something, and so in the idea that people really do need people, there's laughter, there's conversation, there's massage, there's soaking in a hot tub and being with someone. There's laying with someone, cuddling. There can be as well the sex involved, but it changed somewhat. It seems as though that idea of touch that was withheld from so many
Mm-hmm.
became a really important part of it. And so it expanded what I call what happens in a brothel or at Bella's Hockey and a Ranch. There's people out there that have, I'm going to call it health challenges.
Right.
And they, maybe it's heart, maybe it's diabetes, whatever it is, but they require that interaction.
Right.
And at a brothel, that never guarantees, an ejaculation. There may be no, what we call penetration at all, but there can be.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay. See that? That's one thing I always assumed, that there was always penetration when you go to a brothel, but like you say, it could be just experience. Maybe they just want to even talk. They don't have to fuck, right? They can just have a conversation with someone.
That's it. And it's like, and the idea is, there's all these different nationalities in there. And if their experience is to be with another nationality or another size woman or someone from other parts of the world, different accents, the whole thing, all of that is Isabella's Hockey on the Ranch. And I always share with clients, whatever you think is going to happen, multiply it times 10, because you have no idea once that door closes. and there's no script. It just happens.
Okay. So it's not a cookie cutter experience. Every experience is different.
Correct.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. Okay. That's very intriguing. Yeah, that's what is the address? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Let me stop. Okay. So now I'm gonna ask you. I know recently you wrote a letter to your county's leaders, wanting to change.
I did.
Wanted to change the name of your workers. You didn't want them to call your workers prostitutes. You thought a more appropriate name would be courtesan, correct?
Correct, Roosevelt.
So I want to ask you, me personally, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if they call the girls prostitutes, bunnies, frogs. I don't give a damn. I don't look down on them because of a name. But I do understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the negative stigma from the word prostitute because it's very dirty. That's a dirty word. So I get it, what you're trying to do. But is that really important to change the actual name? Because if your girl's going to a bank and they put down profession courtesan, they still know what that is. They still know what the profession does. So does it really matter if you change the name from prostitute to courtesan or whatever? Does it really make a difference in your opinion?
Roosevelt, it really does. And I would like to explain why.
Okay.
There are two different, I'm going to say, two different, we'll call it categories, all right? You have the illegal workers, and then you have these ladies that go through all of these regulations to be legal, licensed, entrepreneurial, sole proprietor business women.
Okay.
Why would they have the same name? They wouldn't. Labels matter. They can be derogatory. These women work in a licensed house with what I call medical regulations and, of course, identification regulations. No one on the outside has to do that. They don't have to have a medical check. They don't have to have a work card or a license. They can just, go from hotel room to wherever. And the word courtesan does mean prostitute, but it means prostitute of the elite, the nobility. And in the 1500s in Venice, these women were educated when the women married to the nobility were illiterate. So these courtesans had the ability to find, reading, writing, education, write poetry, do all of these things that other women were unable to do. It was, no, you aren't going to learn this stuff. So I look at legal courtesans in a different light because they are women that do have an education and they can pass the background check. So there's no reason for them to carry that label of prostitute.
I never thought about it like that, because, I don't mean to think like that, but you're right. It's a unfair generalization, just because someone is a sex worker, you just label them as prostitute or hooker, whatever you want to say. And that's wrong, because they are, like you say, they're doing what they're supposed to do to remain legal. They're clean. They get checked up. They're not the actual streetwalker. It's a much better quality of product. So they shouldn't be called the same name. Just like you shouldn't say Johnny Walker Red is the same as Johnny Walker Blue, right?
You should never say that.
Right. So if you have a client that want Johnny Walker Blue, you better not give them Johnny Walker Red because it's a lower quality. No, because
he'll spit it out at you.
Right.
That's right. It's a totally different quality. And these ladies they're professional. Right. They are amazing courtesans. Whatever the client is looking for, even if it's in the what I call the education of a courtesan, I still put it in the same category as like a geisha. They're educated, they're trained, they're all about customer service. And it's different.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I can dig that. Because, when I read that letter, I was like, what, what's me personally, I was like, who gives a fuck? Prostitute, but not, the way that you put that, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. You should not.
But now you do. Now you do understand. And I want you to know this whole process of just the word courtesan started in July of 23. And so I just keep asking the council, and now I've been told that they are working to make those small changes in the code, but I should be patient because it could take a while, but they're really going to work on it right away. And I think, well, okay. But it will happen.
Okay.
It will. And I'm being very kind about it, but I'm adamant. This is necessary. Even a garbage man. Remember, there was a garbage man, then it became a trash man, then it became a sanitation engineer.
Right, right.
Labels, they have to evolve.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, with your total sense. So, I wish you luck in that. I'm sure that they'll eventually do the right thing. But now that you explain it like that, yeah, that makes total sense. So, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to clear up a lot of ignorance, about the business and, how it is portrayed with the external eyes, like me, or the people that really don't know about the business, but go about, from what they see on HBO specials, So that's a lot.
You did mention Mr. Hoff and
Mm-hmm.
and he was very good at promoting, and he brought out whether it was exactly the way it works in a brothel. He brought out the fact that we do exist, that we are there, that anyone can stop in. There's no obligation. There's no cover charge. Get your questions answered.
Right. Okay. What is the average salary of one of your workers? Give me the bottom end, one of your lowest earners, and give me the top earner. I want to get two spectrums. What is the monetary rewards of that type of career?
They probably won't like if I answer that question. they aren't going to like that.
Well, you can give me a general neighborhood. I don't. You don't have to give me an exact number. Like, one of my girls made $200,000. Just give me like the low end earner, like one of my earners.
I'm just going to say that it's totally possible for them to make an unbelievable amount of money. You mentioned 200,000. It's totally possible, but they're going to have to work most of the year instead of just half a year probably. So the idea is, what are their dreams and goals? If a gal is just a couple weeks on, a couple weeks off, she isn't going to use the business as her main stream of income. But what I can tell you is there's like at least 250 to 400,000 people that come through the doors of brothels, and Bella's Hacienda Ranch on the crossroads of the Western United States gets her share. And so these ladies, they do well, and they should, because this is a short career. They aren't going to get a gold watch and want to be, I'm going to say, retirement age. No, this is for younger women, or I'm going to say even women in their 40s if they've really taken care of themselves. But that's really someone that has, besides really taking care of herself, she's probably been doing this for a while, and she is what I call the upper echelon of the industry. So she charges more. She's a specialty party, a specialty experience.
I got you. The high test in gas. He's the ultimate. She's the 92 grade.
There you go.
And just like gas, you pay more for the high test, right? Than you do regular.
That's correct. Yes.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. That's fair enough. Now, what is the disclosure of your type of business? Meaning, like if I was to come in your business, um, I'm not a politician or anything, but if I was a politician or celebrity or whatever, I didn't want my identity, I wanted my identity to be protected. So what do you do to make sure that the disclosure of the client's information is protected?
Since the beginning of brothels, unless it's like there've been some incidents with Mr. Hoff and some very famous people,
Right.
but that is that's very different. At the other brothels, it's anonymity. We always used to say we don't kiss and tell. You have to keep the privacy of the client, of the guest.
Okay.
And so we just never do. You never hear anything associated with us. And people from all walks of life come through the door.
Now, when you say all walks of life, you're talking about politicians, you're talking about judges, all kind of people, correct?
I mean, they could be anyone. They could be a famous rodeo person or someone from the music industry. And many times, they may or may not be as recognizable as someone might think when they're, on the television or whatever. So, there's, an attorney could be sitting next to a long haul truck driver, and they're just men. There's no title.
Right.
They're men, and they're wanting to have an experience.
Once they step through those doors, they're just men. The titles go out the window.
Yep. Just they could be Joe instead of what their real name is. We don't need to know who they are.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. I want to, back in the day, really, I'm talking about a long time ago. I'm talking about like over 20 years. I used to work in a strip club. Now, I'm not equating brothels with strip clubs. It's totally different. I know that. But for the most part, in my opinion, most of those women were not marriage material because they're all about the money. They're all about making really good money. And, they weren't about to stop that to become a 9-to-5 type person. Now I know all of the women in your establishment are different. All of them are not the same. But in your opinion, do you see the women that work in your establishment or other brothels, do you see them as being marriage material? And what I mean by that, I'm not saying that they are worthy to be married. What I'm saying is, do they want to be married? Do they want the 2 dogs and a picket fence and 2 kids in a nice house on the prairie? Do they want that life? The people, the women that work in your establishment, or are they mostly all about the money?
Boy, that's an interesting question. The ladies, the courtesans that work at Bella's, I always say they have a calling, and it's an in service. It deals with humanity. It deals with sometimes, yes, it's just sex, but other times it's more of a healing, and those women, yes, sometimes there's clients that are a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
meaning that they I don't know. How would I say? Somebody's bringing me through, so I apologize for that. And I'm of course not going to take it, but how should I say? Some people are just not as kind as others. All right. Some clients are just a little ornerier. And so we work to make them, I'm going to say, relax so they can have a great experience no matter what it is. So in this calling that they have, they're good at helping to, I'm going to say, kind of morph into what the client requires in the experience. And at the time that they're in this line of work, I believe that the picket fence and getting married and the 2 dogs and the husband and all of that just isn't, it isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. It might happen in 10 years, it might happen in 5, but this particular industry is really geared towards women that have only limited or no real responsibilities and obligations. You know, to have the children and have the all those things makes it difficult. But I mean, it's possible. There's some that do. But you know, if a lady has the opportunity to just focus on this courtesan career that's short, then it's as if she becomes a money magnet because she isn't concerned about all these other things in life that many people deal with.
So they're more focused on their work, basically, and they don't have distractions.
Yes. And so I always say this as well about the money. It can't be about the money. Of course, that's what we're exchanging. But there has to be something else because the money is like a barometer of how in service they are, how magnetic they are for their clients to find them.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's fair, and that's understandable.
I know it sounds a little different, but you know, gentlemen, it's appearances,
right?
Correct. And so if you're looking for a particular gal and she's having an awkward day, you aren't going to see her. She's going to be invisible. But if she's what I call in character, and they typically have a different name from their own name, and that gal, we'll call her Sally. Sally's in lineup, and her eyes are just glistening, and she's just everything Roosevelt's been looking for. and she's in character. Then the magnetism happens. Then you go, there you are. I'd like to speak to you, Sally.
Right.
But if Sally's all tied up with problems in her life with her real name, you won't see her. She won't look
the part
the way you were expecting her to look. Yes.
I got
Not just the part. It's energy. We look into one another's eyes. And that's the magnetism.
Okay, then that's fair. Because if I'm paying, a certain level of monetary, when I go in that, I definitely want someone who is in it. I don't want anyone that's off their game. So I totally understand that.
Correct. And the gals are just amazing there. They really are. They're, like I said, they're all nationalities, and they're, they aren't all Barbie dolls.
Right.
But they could be Asian, they could be Russian, they could be American. Um, some beautiful African American gals, and it's like we're all the same, and
So,
they're in service.
so speaking of that, the selection, like, me personally, my audience they would tell you that my preference in a woman, I like women who don't shave. I like a lot of pubic hair. Um, you know, uh, you know, I don't like women who do all of that Brazilian wax shit. I like a natural woman. You remember like the old Hustler magazines back in the 70s, where no one was shaving. So I like
Well,
that.
I hear you, and I can't tell you which one is like that. But
Well,
when you're negotiating with her, you can darn sure ask her.
well, how? Because I know my tastes are unique. A lot of guys don't like that. Um, uh, so a lot of guys want women who are clean shaven, which is kind of weird to me. But um, so that's my preference. And I realize that there's a big chance if I was to go into your establishment or any establishment that doesn't exist because most guys don't like that. So how do you select your women? What is the criteria? I know, everyone doesn't have to have big titties, or a nice ass or long hair, whatever. So how do you, if someone comes in your establishment, how do you know that they are Bella quality?
Well, we do talk on the phone, and they send pictures. They send just enough where with the phone number, email, etc. And at the bottom, is there anything else you'd like for me to know? And then it's talking. They need to know who I am, and I'm working to know who they are as much as I'm able, and vice versa, because we're actually interviewing one another.
Right.
Is this the woman that gal can believe in? Most of the other houses are men owned, and they have a female managers, or they might call them madam, but I believe a madam owns and operates
Right.
her business. So those I'm looking for variety, and I'm looking for intelligence. I'm looking for a real passion for being in service. Obviously, that they like sex. They like being, I'm going to say, with all different nationalities themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I look for, and being drop dead gorgeous isn't going to necessarily be part of the criteria. A person wants to be attractive, but they might be shapely, or they might be very thin. Men still like long hair, but then there's those men that like short, kind of cropped hair.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these little differences. Some might be more athletic, and then of course I already talked about the different nationalities.
Right. Okay. All right. That's very interesting. That's one thing that is very different between the strip club industry. It's all about the physical body. If they look good, they're hired. But
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing from
But
your business,
remember,
go ahead.
in a strip club, in order for clients to keep returning, and let's say for a specific lady, it's about the chase. It's about what they can't have. And so as soon as, let's say this young lady decides, well, she's going to go have sex with this client on the outside, well, then he's going to start looking for the next chase because he's already caught it.
Right.
So at Bella, seductive. And I always say the ladies are like seductress, temptress, and enchantress.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of the, show me what you've got, big boy. And that what I call the chase isn't part of it. It's where a client can come in and they can have exactly what they'd like to experience.
Hmm.
And so that does make it what you call the fantasy.
So they can't be just pretty and fine. They can't be stupid. They have to have some type of intelligence as well.
That's part of being a courtesan.
Gotcha.
You have to be able to talk to anyone.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're not just getting fucked. You're getting the all-around communication with the person, the interaction with them as well.
Yeah.
The sex with conversation, so to speak. So, okay, I totally get that. That's understandable. Wow. Okay, that's very powerful. All right. Bella, let me ask you something. Last question. I know you're busy. Do you believe, in your opinion, because me personally, I'm surprised that brothels are not legal in every state. And let's just be honest. There are massage parlors in every state. And, nobody's stupid. Everyone knows what they're doing in those massage parlors. Not all of them, but a great many. So, and I think that in most states, it's at that level, what you said earlier, they're tolerated. They know what they're doing in there, but nobody's fucking with them. Do you believe that eventually in every state that brothels would be legalized entities across this country ever in your lifetime?
Well, I am really working to, I'm going to say, be in the media and talking about this because it's a solution. And I would like to believe it's going to happen in my lifetime, but they better get busy. So that's, aside from that, because you know how old I am, the idea is Nevada was kind of the maverick state. Okay, we had gambling and you could drink on the streets and quickie divorces and little wedding chapels and prostitution.
Right.
All right. Well, now everybody has, their cannabis dispensary, and they've got gambling, and they've got lottery, and you can get divorced or married. The drinking on the street thing, well, that's still kind of a Vegas thing, but all we have left to offer this country is this little blueprint that deals with legal, licensed brothels. And it's been over 50 years without incident, no aid. We've proven it works. And so the blueprint that's in our Nevada revised statutes, some of the words could change, but it's already written. And as I said, it creates tax revenue and public safety.
Mm-hmm.
And it never means that anyone governing these rural brothels in Nevada has to be pro-sex or pro-sex worker. All they have to be is pro-tax and business and public safety. And so it's logical to do it. It's logical to have destinations. Truly, in Nevada, if these sexual encounters are happening outside of a brothel, then you could be criminalized.
Right.
But inside a brothel, It is decriminalized. No one gets arrested. It is all above board, regulated. It's perfect. And so when I hear the drum being beat for decriminalization, the right legislators, government leaders, all they want to know is what's in it for them. It has to be tax money and then public safety.
Right.
Taxes, they want money.
Right. Where's their cut?
So just to decriminalize, the elephant is too big. They'd probably find a way to make, well, that's, anybody can do anybody. It's all decriminalized. Well, we'll just throw children in the mix. That we can't go there. We have to deal with consensual adults and a model that, just like Bella's Hacienda Ranch, that's tested and proven. Decriminalization has no test that's been done on it. We don't know if it would work or absolutely blow up in everyone's community. We don't know if it would be the worst thing that ever happened. But I do know how it works and why it works and why states should have the ability to have it in their community. Vegas should have it, but they don't. They just keep raising the population. We all know why. And that Las Vegas is number one for sex trafficking. Number one. And yet it's legal in our state. That's an embarrassment.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Wow. Number one in trafficking.
I'm sorry, that was a lot.
No.
But it's the truth.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want the truth. And okay.
They could have areas in Vegas and get the cards and the stuff off the street. They could have a district that's red light.
Right.
But whoever those powers are down there, they don't want that. They're like it. They're running their game. But the rest of us don't have to do that.
Right. Well said. Well, I've certainly learned a lot about brothels, Miss Bella, and I really appreciate you coming on my podcast and kind of clearing up something. I mean, we could talk all night. There's all kind of aspects of the business, but we can't do that in one sitting. So maybe I'll have you back a little while later. But you did clear up a lot of dust that I had, and I know that some of my listeners as well. So I really appreciate you coming on my podcast and doing that and taking the time out to do that. And hopefully you can come back.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And I'd be happy to. And then your listeners, if they have questions and we do this again and I can answer them, Roosevelt, that'd be wonderful.
Oh, yeah. That's like a question. Okay, next time it would be more like where they can call in or something if they have any questions, and we'll go like that. So, yeah, okay, we can do that. We can definitely do that.
And if they're looking to see what Bella's Hacienda Ranch is about, the website it's a wonderful website. It's Bella's, BELLAS.us. Very simple, Bellas.us. And then on Twitter, which I know is X now, we're just Bella's Hacienda.
Bella's Hacienda, okay.
And it'll link you right up to it.
Okay, so what I'll do, I'll link up to your social media as well, and I'll promote that on this episode. So
I would be really thrilled with that.
Oh, yeah, thank you for my appreciation for you coming on the show. So I'll put that on that episode. I'll stamp it so it'll always be there, so I can always hit the link and go directly to your website. Oh,
perfect. And thank you. Thank you, and have a great rest of your weekend.
You too. And I hope to talk to you again, probably be later in the year. But really, again, I really appreciate you taking out the time of your busy day and coming to clear up some things about your wonderful business.
You're welcome, and thank you to all your listeners.
Right. Now, don't hang up.
You've been listening to The X and Y Show with your host, Roosevelt Colbert, the place where real relationship issues are talked about and addressed. Join us next time. You can now put your clothes back on, or not.